And it was precisely this group life that sealed the fate of thousands of them on that fateful day. The site where their bones were discovered, in southern Alberta, Canada, was the stage for one of the largest fossil concentrations ever recorded. The area, once a floodplain near an ancient river, became the collective grave of an entire herd. A tragedy preserved in time, a macabre photograph of a moment of natural horror. The ground, saturated and unstable, began to collapse. The Centrosaurus, caught by surprise, tried to flee, but the mass escape only generated more destruction. Those at the front were the first to fall. Many were trampled by their panicked companions. Others were swept away by the force of the flood, dragged into lower areas where they were buried alive by the mud that consumed everything. Some, younger or already weakened, simply could not keep pace with the herd. Death was swift for some, slow and agonizing for others. What remained was a tangled mass of bodies compressed under the weight of tons of flesh, bone, and earth. And then, with time, silence. Decomposition gave way to fossilization. Horror turned into geological record. Millions of years later, humans would excavate that soil with brushes, spatulas, and a patience that rivaled the passage of time itself. Paleontologists would reveal to the world an unprecedented discovery. More than 10,000 bones belonging to a single species in a single location. The drowning cemetery had been revealed. Scientists' interpretation was immediate and brutal. This was not the result of deaths occurring over generations. This was a single event, a sudden catastrophe that wiped out an entire herd. Confirmation came from the uniformity of the fossils, the lack of erosion on the bones, and the absence of signs of predation. Everything there screamed urgency, desperation, tragedy. Now let's move on to another striking fossil, a Triceratops with an infected bite. Imagine an animal more than 9 meters long, weighing between 6 and 12 tons, slowly walking across the plains of a lost world. Its name, Triceratops Horidus. With 3 sharp horns on its face and a protective bony frill rising behind the skull, this giant herbivore was one of the last dinosaurs to inhabit the Earth before the mass extinction event approximately 66 million years ago. But among the many fossils discovered, one tells a particularly dark story marked by pain, survival, and above all, violence. In this specific fossil, what caught paleontologists' attention was not just a well-preserved skull. What stood out were perforations located in vulnerable areas of the facial bone. Perforations that, when analyzed, revealed a specific pattern, a curvature, a spacing between the marks, a depth compatible with only one living creature of that time, Tyrannosaurus Rex. The powerful jaws of this predator could exert a force of more than 5 tons, enough to crush bone and tear away entire chunks of flesh. But what makes this case so intriguing is that the Triceratops did not die at the moment of the attack. Quite the opposite. The bone surrounding the perforations shows clear signs of irregular growth, a biological reaction to the body's attempt to heal, an inflamed type of bone callus, typical of infection. The Triceratops survived. This discovery changes the traditional narrative of the late Cretaceous food chain. Instead of a simple predation scene, we are faced with a more complex drama. The attack, survival, infection, continuous pain, and finally, a slow death. The skull becomes a witness not only to a brutal fight, but also to the resilience of a wounded animal struggling to carry on. The infection that settled into the perforations of the skull was severe. The disorganized bone growth indicates that the body reacted however it could. This inflammatory response is a clear sign that it lived for several weeks after the attack, perhaps even months. Every movement of the jaw, every bite of leaves or branches caused pain. Finally, let's look at the fossil of Protoeratops versus Velociraptor. In the heart of the Gobi Desert, one of the most inhospitable and arid regions on the planet, lies one of the most dramatic testimonies of the age of dinosaurs. A moment frozen more than 70 million years ago, where life and death became intertwined in a fierce dance. This is the fossil known as the fighting dinosaurs. Protoeratops versus Velociraptor. Two names, two destinies sealed in a confrontation as brutal as it was intimate. On one side, Protoeratops, a medium-sized herbivore with a large bony frill and a beak sharp as scissors. On the other, I've always been struck by the image of the Velociraptor. Agile, intelligent, lethal. That sickle-shaped claw on its foot. It's inspired myths and films for decades, and rightly so. But a particular fossil reveals something beyond just shapes and names. It reveals the precise instant of combat. The Velociraptor, leg raised, driving its killing claw into the neck of a Protoceratops. The herbivore, in response, biting down hard on the attacker's arm with its powerful jaws. Immobilized, locked in a final struggle, neither one would emerge victorious. It was mutual death. The sand, rich in minerals and compacted over eons, became an extraordinary agent of preservation. The fossil preserved not only the bones, but also their relative positions. Limbs, teeth, claws, everything frozen, as if time paused to record nature's raw ferocity. Then there's the story of Pex Rex, or fossil MMO 980. In the arid heart of what is now Montana, about 66 million years ago, one of the Cretaceous period's most brutal confrontations played out. The supreme predator, Tyrannosaurus Rex, met its end in a shocking way. Pex Rex is more than just a fossil. It tells a story unlike any other. Scientists analyzing the skeleton found a massive puncture wound in the neck, precisely where vital arteries, the trachea, and crucial head-supporting muscles were located. It was as if a spear had been driven with devastating force into the animal's vital systems. But this spear wasn't metal. It was bone, the horn of a Triceratops. The scene that emerges in the minds of paleontologists is one of a close-quarters confrontation, a decisive strike, a hunting attempt gone wrong. The greatest terrestrial predator of its era became the prey. Bone fragments around the puncture indicate the impact was deep, piercing soft tissues, blood vessels, and likely perforating the trachea. There were no signs of healing. No attempt by the body to recover. The blow was fatal, or, at the very least, the direct cause of death. Discovered in 1997 by geologist Bob Harmon and nicknamed Pex Rex in honor of ranch owner Lewis Peck, the fossil has fascinated scientists and the public alike because of its story, its end, and its silent message written into every fracture, every shattered bone. And beyond individual battles, there are the mass group deaths. Dinosaurs buried alive. In many parts of the world, paleontologists have unearthed dinosaur cemeteries, skeletons tangled together, as if the animals died trying to escape. Sandstorms, violent floods, mudslides, sudden, merciless forces that transformed the landscape in the blink of an eye. Those who lived there were swallowed alive by the very environment they once called home. These fossil sites reveal rare moments of prehistoric life frozen in time, not in isolation, but in community. Entire dinosaur families, from juveniles to adults, preserved side by side, their deaths bearing witness to an instant of collective panic. These weren't natural deaths, isolated or spread out over time. They were sudden, catastrophic moments when nature turned against its own children with devastating fury. In China's Yixian Formation, entire groups of Psittacosaurus, small bipedal herbivores, have been found piled together in layers of volcanic sediment, buried alive by ash from a sudden eruption. In Mongolia, sandstorms engulfed dinosaurs mid-motion, their poses preserved within the desert, revealing final attempts to escape an inevitable death. And in Madagascar, a mudslide captured an entire group of Majungasaurus, feared predators that had no time to fight back. Crushed, immobilized, preserved. Discoveries in North America, such as those in the Morrison Formation, show remains of Diplodocus and other sauropods grouped in patterns suggesting entire herds were wiped out at once by sudden floods. These sites allow us to see beyond death. They show us how dinosaurs lived, how they organized themselves into herds, families, and social structures, and how even in groups they were vulnerable to the power of nature. Then there's the story of the Pachyhinosaurus, crushed in a stampede. In the petrified silence of time, a tragedy unfolded beneath darkened skies in ancient North America. These bones belonged to Pachyhinosaurus, a gregarious herbivore whose head was adorned with thick bony bosses. But it's not this animal's appearance that draws attention. It's the way it died. Paleontologists excavating a vast rock formation in Alberta, Canada, encountered a macabre scene. Dozens of Pachyhinosaurus fossils stacked on top of one another, with bones crushed and fractured. I've often wondered about the last moments of creatures who lived millions of years ago. And some discoveries. They haunt me. Take the Patrinosaurus fossils. The way they were fractured, the compression marks on their skeletons. It wasn't a simple fall or a predator's work. It was chaos, a stampede. Imagine the scene, a herd in a frenzy, running blindly, maybe startled by a predator, or a raging wildfire, or a sudden storm. Some fall, others stumble, and the weight of tons of flesh and bone becomes a deadly force for the weakest and most unfortunate. The fossils included juveniles, adults, even hatchlings. It was a family, or some kind of social unit, wiped out in a single moment of panic. They were peaceful herbivores. Evidence suggests they cared for their young, protected them like modern elephants do. But no defense can stand against that kind of terror. Not all of them died instantly, though. Some fossils showed healed fractures, signs of survival even with broken bones. But others, acute, lethal trauma. The microfractures revealed a force from all directions, as if the bodies were compressed within a living, desperate mass. Paleontologists call it herd death, a natural catastrophe that, ironically, preserves fossils so well. Then there's the Carnotaurus with the fractured jaw, a predator, a force of nature in South America over 70 million years ago. A meat-eating bull, one of the largest and most agile theropods of its time. But even kings have weaknesses, and sometimes a silent fossil tells a story beyond strength and ferocity, a story of pain, struggle, silent defeat. This particular Carnotaurus fossil held a mystery in its jaw, a significant unhealed fracture. It compromised the entire side of its mouth, affecting its ability to hunt, to feed, to survive. The paleontologists who examined it recognized the severity. It wasn't superficial. It was a severe rupture in the lower jawbone, causing extreme pain, making even basic movements difficult. What struck me most was the absence of healing. No new bone tissue, no calluses, none of the adjustments the body makes to restore itself. It was as if the fracture had happened just before the animal's death. The grim hypothesis: starvation. Unable to open its jaw or kill its prey, the Carnotaurus was condemned to waste away. Imagine its suffering. Every bite, every movement sending waves of pain through its body. Each step slower, more hesitant. A predator transformed into a shadow, pushed out of territorial disputes, abandoned by its prey, maybe even by its own kind. And then the Tyrannosaurus Rex, with the bite marks on its bones. Another Tyrannosaurus Rex. In a landscape fossilized over 66 million years ago, this colossal predator, the tyrant lizard king, once reigned supreme. But even kings face challenges. And a fossil discovered in Montana revealed something fascinating, unprecedented. Bite marks on its bones, made by another Tyrannosaurus Rex. It's surprising, unsettling. It sheds light on their behavior in a way we could only imagine. The tooth marks match the robust, widely spaced, deeply penetrating dentition of another tyrannosaur. This forces us to reconsider everything: cannibalism, a fierce territorial dispute, or a meal where opportunity outweighed social restraint. To understand the significance, we must first understand who Tyrannosaurus Rex was. Measuring 13 meters in length, nearly 4 meters tall at the hips, with a jaw capable of exerting up to 6 tons of pres. It wasn't merely a predator. It was a bone crusher. Its banana-shaped teeth were capable of crushing not only... Imagine a time capsule, not buried in the earth, but etched in bone. It's a story told by teeth, the teeth of a Tyrannosaurus Rex, pressed against the bones of another. Those teeth, specifically, left their signatures on fossil remains discovered in Montana. The bite marks appear on the skull, jaw, arms, and legs of the specimen. In many instances, the pattern is so deep and clear that it reveals the precise moment when one tyrannosaur pressed its teeth against the bone, tearing away flesh, and even fragmenting parts of the carcass. For paleontologists, this level of detail offers a window into behavior that textbooks and theories alone simply couldn't describe. But what does it all mean? Was Tyrannosaurus Rex actually eating its own kind? And if so, why? The most widely accepted hypothesis suggests opportunistic cannibalism. In the wild, hostile environments of the late Cretaceous period, food scarcity could have driven even the largest predators to feed on the bodies of their dead counterparts. This behavior isn't unprecedented in the animal kingdom. Today, crocodiles, sharks, and even bears sometimes practice cannibalism when circumstances demand it. It makes you wonder, why would things have been any different 66 million years ago? Another, even more dramatic possibility is that the marks are evidence of a fight between two Tyrannosaurus Rex individuals, perhaps over territory, mating rights, or dominance over a kill. And at the end of the confrontation, the victor may have consumed parts of the defeated rival. This behavior, too, is observed among modern predators. Wolves, for example, sometimes kill members of rival packs and then feed on them. In this scenario, Tyrannosaurus Rex ceases to be merely a killing machine and becomes an animal with complex social behaviors, where things could get quite extreme.